Hello chess players, Jonathan here. So we've all fallen victim from time to time to our opponent's attacks. Sometimes our opponents just outplay us with a brilliancy, but more often than not it's because we use poor technique in the defense. This is why I've formulated a list of 7 principles to help you become a better defender. Defense is not always the prettiest part of a chess game, and is certainly not the most fun to play. However, these 7 principles, if taken to heart, will most definitely increase those cross-table scores at tournaments, unlike any other aspect of chess. So why does defending give you better results than any other aspect of chess? Is because you get a twofold advantage when you become a better defender. You have a chessical, if you will, a chessical advantage from the fact that you defend better than most players when your opponents attack. They're used to a certain level of defense, and you're defending better. And also a psychological advantage, because a lot of people don't defend, and they're prepared for an attack, they're prepared to attack at all costs. And so when you prepare a strong defense, when you say, look, I'm going to play a patient game, I am going to repulse your attack, and then I'm just going to be at much better advantage, have a huge advantage over you, then that sends them a message that a lot of other parts of chess, like maybe in-game preparation or opening preparation, can give. So, like all other R Games videos, we are going to take a game from the 1200 to 2200 rating range, and we're going to look at how to, we're going to look at a specific part of the game, and today we're going to learn how to be a better defender. So today's game was taken from the 2015 Alabama State Scholastic Chess Championships. This is actually one of my games. I'm playing black as about a 1900 against about a 2100. So we're on the higher end of the scale here, but still, you'll see this game is filled with mistakes, and hopefully you can learn a little bit from it. And so this is a longer game, so we're gonna speed through most of it. We're not going to talk about the strategies or anything that I might have had or he might have had. However, we're going to focus again on the defense, these 7 key principles of the defense. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this game. Alright, b3, d5, bishop b2, knight f6, e3, e6, knight f3, bishop to d6, d4, c6. Alright, so I knew my opponent was an attacker. I had played him before. Now I do have a plus record against him, or I did at this point and still do. However, I was quite afraid of my opponent's attack, so I naturally assumed that if I played more solid, he wouldn't be able to attack me. However, this is not true. The first principle that we're going to look at today states, keep an active position. Now this may seem counterintuitive to you. You'll say, well, Jonathan, why would playing something more active like c5 be better against an attacker? Well, that's because you're not letting your opponent dictate play. This is absolutely crucial. Do not allow your opponent to dictate the play of the game. If you do, then he will, like his natural instinct says, he will attack you. But if you can counterattack in the center, maybe on the queen side, then he is going to be distracted at the least, or he may be fully transfixed on your play to where he never actually begins an attack. Alright, so some of the best defenders in the world, it's not the defense that keeps them from losing to these brilliant attacks. It's because they keep an active position. They don't allow their opponent to attack them. Simple, right? So, okay, that's the first principle. Keep an active position. Alright, so again, probably c5 would have been a little better, maybe even castle before I played c5. But anyway, I played c6. c6, solid, but again, against an attacker, not a good idea to let him dictate the play of the game. Bishop to d3. Castle's kingside. Sorry. Knight bd7. Knight bd2. Then castles. Castle's kingside. And I played rook to e8, which is a tactical mistake, not from a material standpoint, but from a technical standpoint. I was prepared to play e5. I wanted to play e5, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, if he traded all those pawns and or pieces. And so I backed my rook up, that way I could take control of the e5 square and play it the next move. This is keeping an active position, and I knew I needed to do this. However, I thought I should play c6, which was a little bit too passive at the time, but at least I'm realizing my mistake here and I'm trying to become active again. However, this is a mistake because he can play knight to e5, which completely locks down the center of the board, and now I'm in serious trouble. That's why probably queen c7 would have been a little bit better. Now knight e5 doesn't work because I win a pawn. So after rook to e8, which is what I played, knight e5, I began to realize I was in trouble because I knew very well the second principle of the defense. What's the second principle? The second principle is take control of the center, or if you can't take control of the center, bring the fight to the center. So the point is, if you control the center of the board, not a closed center, but if you control the center of the board, or unless of course the closed center is pointing, say, this way, to where you're the one who has an open attack. But if the position is open, or say this pawn moved up to e4 magically and the center was closed, but you had active control of the king side, then your opponent could not attack you basically at all. For instance, if this was an open center, he couldn't play f4, g4, h4, because your queen would probably start taking control of this g1 to a8, sorry, a7 diagonal. Your bishop will jump onto this diagonal over here, long diagonal, and once these pawns begin to move, then the fact that the center is open means you can play long-range attack. You don't have to pull up a full onslaught of an attack. You can just pull your pieces into a position where they can, from a long ways off, mess with your opponent's king, or with their opponent's king. And so what happens is they end up basically having only weakened their king side position, and your king side is in fact the one that turns out to be stronger. So if you control the center of the board, you are going to most definitely not allow any very few attacks, and if they do occur, unless they are tactically justified, they're almost always not going to work. However, I knew in this position, as soon as I played c5 actually, trying to get him to weaken his center, I knew that he was going to play f4, and which is what he played, and I would not even be able to attack his center. Alright, so remember, if you can't take control of the center, which I can't in this case, because he already has control of it, you'd want to bring the fight to the center, and I can't bring the fight to the center because he's got such solid control over it. And when your opponent has such solid control of the center and has a space advantage on the king side, the game is, for all practical purposes, over with for me. I have zero chances already. I'm much worse, and I knew it. And being that this was the last round of a state championship event, I knew I was in trouble, and I was very much upset with myself that I'd already given up the game, basically already. Against a good attacker, I knew I was toast. And basically the only reason why I was able to continue to play on was because I was able to rely on my defensive skills which were lacking to begin with, but become a little bit stronger as we move on down this list here. The reason why I say they can become stronger is because these first two or three, sometimes the third, but these first two for sure can be played before the attack even begins. I mean, you can take an active position before he begins his attack. That's going to stop an attack from occurring, which means he's not going to be able to attack you. If he doesn't start his attack, he can't attack you. And of course, if you keep control of the center of the board before he starts his attack, it's way too risky for him to begin an attack. Alright? So those two things can be done before the defense actually ever begins, and that's why some of the strongest defenders in the world aren't that strong because they're such good defenders, but it's because they do not ever allow their opponents to attack them. And when they do, of course, they are strong with the rest of these principles. But I just wanted to point this out, that a good defense doesn't start with the defense. It starts with opening preparation to stop your opponent from attacking you. And of course, I didn't do this. So I was relying on the rest of these principles, which are for defense and defense only. But I knew I was in serious trouble already. So let's go on. We don't want to focus too much on this game, his attack. Sorry. After f4, I played b6. He went rook f3. I went a5. And the point here is I want to trade off his bishop, which brings us to the third principle. Exchange off your opponent's attacking weapons. Exchange off your opponent's attacking weapons. Basically, if your opponents don't have spears, they have to come at you with swords, which means they're going to be more vulnerable. And if they don't have swords, if you can get at them with their spears, they're going to be more awkward, right? You understand where I'm coming from? If I get rid of some of his attackers, it's going to be harder for him to attack me because he has fewer attackers. And so if I get rid of this really good attacking piece, he's going to be disabled quite badly. And so I recognized that, and I wanted to play bishop to a6. He's got an attacking piece, so I'm going to get rid of it, which is a good decision. However, it doesn't work that well, because I'm a little bit behind. As I said before, I played c6 and then c5 instead of just c7 to c5 immediately. So I'm already a little bit behind, and of course he's got solid control of the center. So he's got all the time in the world. Anyway, after a5, he went rook h3. He's playing with this pawn over here, which got me a little bit concerned. And again, I consider myself a fairly good defender. I'm not sure what was going on with me, though, and I played h6. There are some interesting lines where he plays g4 and g5 and knocks my knight off the f6 square. However, playing h6 was just too weakening. Alright, this is a horrible move. Well, I mean, from a computer standpoint, it's not that bad, but from a principled standpoint, it's pretty bad. The point is, our fourth principle of the day today is don't give your opponent targets. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm allowing him to play g4, g5, and attack this h-pawn. If I had this pawn over here, then when he goes g4, g5, he's not attacking anything but my knight. But even if my knight were to move, he'd have to move his pawn up to g6 and actually sacrifice a pawn in order to open anything up. However, once h6 occurs, he can play g4 and g5 and attack my h-pawn, and I'm forced to either take it or he's going to weaken my kingside structure. It's as simple as that. Also, bishop to a6 probably would have worked a little bit better. However, I was becoming pretty seriously concerned. I figured he might play something like c4. I'm not exactly sure what the lines were that I saw. But I knew g4, g5 was coming, and at some point my knight's going to have to move. However, probably better, maybe not best, but better, bishop b7. If g4, then I can actually play knight to e4 myself, and that's a very solid knight. At some point I may eventually play even f5, try to blockade him the same way he's blockading me. So that probably would have been a little bit better, but for some reason I really messed things up. I screwed things up and I played h6. Now I'm much, much worse. Let's see how I continue to hold on. Alright, so these first 4 principles, I have only adhered to one of them, and I didn't stick to it for long. Alright, and for somebody that, at least at this point, considered himself a good defender, I'm playing pretty badly, and it's evident for all to see that, at least in this game, I am not defending well. Alright, so for those of you who are worried about stronger players like 1900s experts, 2100s, understand they do make mistakes, and not just little mistakes. They sometimes do make very serious mistakes, and masters even sometimes do as well. Now, of course, masters don't make them as often as experts do. Experts don't make them as often as like Class A and Class B players do, and 1200 rated players make them a lot more often, and that's what distinguishes the classes. However, 2000s still make mistakes. It's as simple as that, and I am making many mistakes. I'm falling head over heels here into his attack, and so I'm already in serious trouble here. But alright, h6. I'm not going to worry too much about his attack right now. g4. I anticipated his g5, and I decided I didn't want to allow him either the option of taking on h6 or allowing me to, or forcing me to take on g5, and then once he takes back, he can make my knight move, and then he can bring his queen down to h5. Let's just say I made a nothing move. He may go here, and if I takes, say I move to, I don't know, I only have 1 square, he's got this move, and I'm in serious trouble. In fact, I think I'm getting checkmated, because if I go king f8, which is the only way to avoid checkmate in 1 with queen h8, he's got queen f7 mate. So that's what I was afraid of, so I decided to go with knight h7. Alright, so this is, interestingly enough, a principled decision. This gives up a pawn. He's going to play bishop takes h7, and then after king takes h7, he's going to play knight takes d6, I mean f7, followed by moving my queen, then he'll take on d6. But what I decided was this bishop, this knight, are strong attacking pieces, and if I can get rid of them, I've got a better chance at defending myself. So that's what I did. I played knight h7, and I baited him, basically. I was like, you want to give up your 2 attacking pieces for a pawn? Be my guest. This is basically conceding the fact that, yes, I am worse. And I was just trying to stop his attack. So, yes, a very good principled decision, saying, I know I'm not going to just let you steamroll me, but I am going to try to fight back a little bit and get rid of some of your attacking pieces. So, bishop takes h7. Take a moment, if you would, and tell me, why can he not play knight takes f7? Remember, the idea is I'm forcing him to get rid of his nice bishop with bishop takes h7. Why can't he take on f7? And then if I move my queen, he would just take my bishop, and then he'll still have his bishop on d3. So why can't he play knight takes f7? Alright, if you pause the video, which I hope you did, because this is how you're going to become a better chess player. You need to see these things. Maybe even saw it while I was telling you, which is even better. If knight takes f7, I simply coldly respond with king takes f7. He'll play bishop takes h7. I'll play g6. He'll play rook captures h6, of course, and then I'll play king g7. And the point is, I'm forking his rook and bishop. He could try to take here. He'll have 3 pawns for the piece. My king will be wide open, but more than likely I'll be fine, because he'll have to move his rook, and I can bring my 2 of my very strong defensive and also attacking pieces to bear on his king side as well. He can do that, or he could try to defend his bishop, play here, but then his bishop's trapped, so that's why he can't do that. So Steven correctly played bishop takes h7. Steven's the name of my opponent. Bishop takes h7, king takes h7, knight f7, queen e7, knight d6. His knight, if he goes back to e5, I'll probably be either take it, or I will at some point play just bring my knight over here to d6 and then try to take control of his e4 square with leaving his knight on e5. So we decided to go ahead and play queen takes d6. Oops, see, I missed something earlier. Right before I played h6 here, I took on c4 just to weaken his center. I'm sorry, I missed that move. Small detail, which comes to the fore a little bit later, actually. So anyway, after h6, of course, g4, knight h7, bishop takes h7, knight takes h7, or knight takes f7, queen e7, knight d6, queen d6. Okay, so I'm threatening f4, and I have gotten a little bit more of an active position. I have a cramped position, but I have fewer pieces, which means I'm a little bit more active. Alright, so my next task, and I knew this next task, was to bring my rooks to the king's side. Alright, so the reason why that is my next task is because of the fifth principle. Alright, the fifth principle is shuttle defenders to the king. Alright, because if you have more defenders, the defense and the attack is basically a numbers game, and if you have more defenders, you have a higher number, and if your opponent has a serious number advantage with his attacking pieces over your defensive pieces, you're going to get overwhelmed very easily. Whereas if you have enough defenders, hopefully you can counter balance his queen, rook, and bishop, and knight, maybe eventually. So that's my idea, and this rook needs to get in the play. So I played bishop a6. Oops, sorry, it's his move. He played queen to f3. Yeah. Alrighty. So actually, first I played rook f8, like I mentioned, then rook f1, then bishop a6. Alright, so I'm attacking his rook. He plays c4, blocking. And here, for some reason, I've got this, it seems like I do this with quite a few of the principles already. I sort of do it, but then I stop. I really should have played rook to f7, prepared to defend with rook a to f8. However, for some reason, again, I missed it, and I slipped a little bit more in the computer's analysis of the position. I played rook a c8, attacking the c-pawn, which is completely irrelevant when I'm being attacked brutally by a rook, a queen, and a rook, and a knight, and a bishop, and two pawns, and another pawn. Pawns don't matter that much. He's probably willing to sacrifice one because, first off, he's ahead of pawn, and second off, all that's going to be doing is taking away time. And so, instead of defending this guy, of course, I'm threatening to take back, and then play bishop takes pawn, and then after knight takes, I can take with the rook. So I am threatening to win a pawn. He didn't care. He plays g5. He went immediately after my king. So I did recognize in time that I was in trouble. So I went back to my old plan. I played rook to f5, stopping queen to h5 eventually. So I'm finally going back to this fifth principle here, shelling defenders to the king. And then after rook f5, queen g4. Alright, now he has some very serious kingside threats, and of course it's all because I played very bad principles. I've messed up, and the reason why I'm showing you principles where I or anybody messed up is because you need to see how quickly a position can erode if you don't play them correctly. Now I am going to play most of the rest of these correctly, even though my position is completely hopeless, to show you that if they're played well, they can be used to create some serious psychological problems in your opponent, as we shall soon see. So I wanted to kind of give you the best of both worlds here. mixing it all together, as that song goes. You know, trying to show you that playing badly is going to give you consequences, and playing well can produce some either good results or even some miracles sometimes, where your opponent just messes up badly, which is, in this case, spoiler alert, is what happens. So queen g4. I played rook c f8. He played g takes h6, g takes h6, rook g3. Of course, he's threatening mate. And here, technically speaking, ask yourself, according to the fifth principle, shuttle defenders to the king, what's best? He's threatening mate on g7. What is best? Alright, queen e7 is technically the best move from a principle standpoint, alright? I'm bringing 9 more pawns into the defense. And I'm bringing my most powerful piece to defend my king, which is seriously good for me. However, he can concede an attack with trading queens, which would be good for me, but then end up being 2 pawns ahead in an endgame. Now, I could have gone down this path. Excuse me. I could have gone down this path, but I chose to play something a little bit more risky. Understand, this is the final round of a big tournament. Losing isn't going to lose me anything. I'd come in second the past 2 years, and so I knew that I needed something a little better, and actually, sorry, 2 out of the past 3 years I'd come in second, so I needed something a little better, and so instead of this queen e7, which again, from a principle standpoint, I just wanted to say would have been best, I played rook 5 to f7, which doesn't bring the queen into the defense, but now if he decides to take my pawn, notice this rook is defended, then he can't trade queens. So he's still just completely winning. This probably would have been a great way to go. However, his attack isn't working out so well, and maybe I have some counterplay against his open king. That's what he was thinking, at least. So he plays a brilliant move here. He's a good attacker, and I'm in a bad position. He played knight e4. Take a moment, see if you understand why knight e4 is such a strong move. Basically, I can't take it. D takes e4. Queen g6. King h8. Discovered check with d5. Now if I block it with the rook, you have checkmate. If I block it with the knight, I just simply take the knight followed by checkmate. Notice his king can't move. He's forced to block. And if he blocks with the knight, I'll take here. And the bishop is defended, so he's forced to sacrifice his queen. Or he could just simply play d5, and I pick up his queen for free. So I can't take his knight, and I'm in serious trouble. So I played queen e7. But what's important to notice here is that line I calculated it in my head. I asked myself, why can't I take that knight? Alright, this is possibly one of the most important principles out there. The sixth principle says, don't be afraid of taking sacrificed material. Simple as that. I calculated, I couldn't do it here, I calculated that it doesn't work out, and then I didn't do it. So many players, they just reactively move the queen away. You know, it's like, surely it's good. Excuse me. And they don't calculate. And then what ends up happening, like with the first principle of not keeping an active position, they go into super passivity and they just lose. Because their opponent has such a good position. Notice this knight is much better placed than it would be on f3 or d2. Okay, so after queen e7, he plays another brilliant move. He's taken me out one by one. He plays bishop a3. He's like, alright, you don't want to take my knight? Take my bishop. Bishop a3. I calculated that, I mean, if I just move, I'm losing. So I took it. I was like, alright, what are you going to do? Again, I was not afraid to take. And then he could have ended me, sorry, by playing queen g6 check, king h8, and knight g5. The point is, anywhere I move my rook, he's threatening queen. He's threatening queen h6. He's threatening rook h3. He's threatening knight takes f7. He's threatening knight takes e6, followed by queen g7. There's plenty of different threats he's threatening. course, his main threat is just to take here, forcing me to take back, and then delivering checkmate. So I probably would have had to do something like queen to, like, say, rook g7, queen h6 check, king g8, and then notice I've dropped another pawn, but here I'm not super familiar about what position I would play it, but I think I play here, queen takes e6. If he blocks, he drops an exchange, so he's got to go back, king h8, and that's going to be checkmate. And if he blocks, he's just going to be down too much material. There's no way to avoid a discovered attack or queen g6 attack, so I'm just totally lost. So that's what he could have done. He could have ended me right there because I played so badly. However, my opponent made a serious mistake. He played not queen g6. He played knight g5 immediately. Take a moment now, and I want you to take a moment now. If you haven't taken any moments to pause the videos before, take it now, because the 7th principle lies just behind my next move. See if you can take a moment and find what move I played. Also, if you haven't already, take a moment and just understand how big of a problem I'm in. So, take a moment, pause the video. What would you play? How do I refute knight g5? Alright, so how many of you thought I could refute knight g5 by moving my king? I'm moving my king onto this big file, but then as soon as he takes, I'm getting my king out of the attack. Well, if that's what you thought, then you are correct in assuming that my king is not about to get checkmated. At least I think. However, what you're wrong about is conceding an exchange and the game. The correct move is h takes g5. He played queen takes g5, and basically he sat back in his chair and looked up at me and was like, "That's it, man. I'm threatening 3 different mates in one. I'm threatening if you move your g7 or your f7 rook anywhere besides e7 to checkmate you on g7. If you move your rook somehow to the wrong square, I'm threatening queen to g8, followed by queen to g6 mate. Obviously that's not possible here, but he's threatening quite a few different ways to checkmate me. The 7th principle in the defense, the final principle today, is calculate concretely. So important to calculate concretely. Take a moment, if you have not already, and try to ask yourself, how do I avoid 4 different mates in one? The answer is very simple. I saw, actually back when he played queen takes a3, I missed his queen g6 followed by knight g5, but I saw knight g5 immediately. I saw back in this position, that in this exact position here, I had the cold king h8, and I'm up 2 pieces. Just look at it for a second. Simple move. One move is all it took. Any check is met by queen, by a rook to h7. e5, f6 are both covered by the knight or rook, or rook. And my 7th and 8th ranks are solid as a rock. I'm up 2 pieces, and though it was not easy due to time pressure, I made some mistakes in time pressure, I went on to win this game. What lesson you can take from this last principle, this very powerful principle, is calculate calculate concretely. A lot of times your opponents will go into an all-out attack. That's what Steven did by sacrificing 2 pieces. If I didn't respond correctly and accurately, no matter what I did, I would lose. And so what I had to do is I had to go and I had to say, all right, how am I going to get out of this? I calculated concretely, and I ended up winning this game. And in fact, I ended up winning the tournament in a blitz playoff. So that seventh principle, very, very powerful to understand. Always, always, always calculate concretely. Maybe your opponent is sacrificing a piece, like bishop takes h6 at some point, you know, or bishop takes h7. Do you take it or do you not take it? Calculate concretely if you can or if you can't. If you can't, then concede the fact that you're worse and you missed a tactic. If you can, however, prove to him that he made a mistake. Either that or you just simply made a mental mistake and you couldn't have taken it in the first place and you were just worse anyway. You know? So that is my challenge to you. Make sure you calculate concretely every position in the defense for your seventh principle. If you calculate concretely, you will receive better results in tournaments. So let me pull these back up on the screen one more time. These 7 principles of the defense. And as you can see here, each one of these is key in stopping a good attack. Keep an active position. Don't give your opponent targets. Sorry, keep an active position. Take control of the center. Bring a fight to the center of the board if you can't. Exchange off the attacker's weapons. Don't give your opponent targets. Shuttle defenders to the king. Don't be afraid of taking sacrificed material, and calculate correctly. You apply those, you practice those 8, I can guarantee you will play much better. You will have better tournament results than you would ever have had if you hadn't practiced the defense. Because again, as I said, it's both chessical and a psychological advantage by learning that. So if you get better results, or if you play some great game, again, we'll probably have 2 or 3 more our games videos. I'm still open for suggestions. So if you have some really good defensive game, let me know, and I might put it up for video, you know, just to show how these 7 principles can be used in maybe a more effective way than I showed them here today. But practice them. Make sure that that you like this video, and then don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know what you thought, and maybe some ideas for future videos, because again, we are coming closer to the end of our games series, and we'll begin a new series sometime very soon. I'm looking for ideas still, so let me know what you're thinking, and thank you so much again for watching this video.